which is, you can see protests all over the place. Boats are maneuvering. There's a lot going on. And so knowing the rules provides confidence on your boat in terms of navigating the course. It also provides confidence in terms of knowing that the other boats, assuming they are familiar with the rules, knowing that the other boats are going to maneuver appropriately in different kinds of situations. So it's good to know the rules. It's important, just to make racing safer, make it more fun, make it an experience that can be enjoyed and, not too controversial. So we're going to do this. Whoops. We're going to do this in the context of a little bit of a trivia contest. But I do want to talk just for a second about the changes that are there. And the changes are all over the place. There is on the US Sailing website a 4-page file by Dave Perry called A Quick Overview of the Significant Rule and Game Changes. So he discusses the changes from the previous edition of the rules in the context of, this is how the game has changed. This is the specific changes to the rule. And he puts it in a perspective where you're sort of trying to understand why the rule was changed, what makes things better as a consequence of rule change. I'm just going to highlight a few things here. One thing is that the notice of race and the sailing instructions, have been moved out of the racing rules of sailing. They used to be appendices, and now they are separately published guides. That's certainly not a big deal. But it turns out also that the notice of race and the sailing instructions, have a little bit more of a significance as far as understanding what's in them. The notice of race historically, you may feel differently, but historically, the notice of race was kind of a secondary document. You looked at it once and that was the end of it, and then you focused on the SIs. Nowadays, the notice of race has a much more important role to play in terms of understanding what the event is going to look like, and deciding whether you're going to enter the event. And information in the notice of race should not be repeated in the SIs. It may be, but it doesn't have to be, and it's kind of suggested that it not be. So it's sort of more important now to get hold of the notice of race and have it available when you're entering and participating in a regatta. One other big change is that the rules include language previously that referred to hull, crew, and equipment as a unit. It could be a hull, but it could be the crew, it could be the equipment. Now it's oriented, the new rules are oriented to focus strictly on the hull. These phrases come into play in definitions and also a little bit in the rules, but mostly in definitions. So a definition of a start has to do with when the hull crosses the start line and has nothing to do with the equipment or the crew. And the same with finish, the same with taking a penalty, and so on. So it's the hull that has become important and not the other things in the new rules. And that makes it easier, I think, for everyone to know what's going on. If you have a sprit boat, like a J105, the hull does not include the bowsprit, so you can't gain any advantage by putting out the bowsprit. So the hull is the hull as you might typically interpret the hull. The only place, or maybe not the only place, sorry, but a place where the definition remains unchanged is in the definition of clear stern, clear ahead, and overlap. That refers to hull and equipment still, and it's not changed to strictly hull. So an overlap, when you're talking about equipment, might typically have to do with a spinnaker out in front of the boat, questioning whether then there's an overlap with a boat ahead, let's imagine for a second, can rely on the equipment. So just so we have that. The other thing in the rule changes is that there is a new scoring penalty without a hearing, referred to as not sailing the course. So sailing the course is now a definition in the new rules. It used to be one of the rules, but now it's a definition. And the race committee, in scoring finishing places of boats, can score a boat that's observed to not sail the course as NSC. That's a penalty. That's a equivalent penalty to a DSQ, referred to as an NSC, without a hearing. That was not possible in the previous versions of the rules. The race committee had to protest the boat and participate in a protest hearing and all kinds of stuff like that, so which was very discouraging for the race committee. So this is more of a simpler definitive step when a boat does not sail the course. There's some clarification, on taking penalties and exoneration. The phrase is made much stronger now to refer to the fact that a boat, instead of shall be exonerated, now is exonerated when, under situations where they're entitled to room and are not given it, they might have broken a rule of Part 2. Now it's phrased that the boat is exonerated. The boat is exonerated. Okay. These are kind of subtle, but they're actually, in the context of the whole rule changes, some of the ones that are going to kind of show up a little bit more pronounced. There is a single, significant change in a rule referred to in Rule 16.2. So let's just focus on 16.2 for a second. This is a rule that refers to a situation where you have a starboard tack boat and a port tack boat. And the starboard tack boat is altering course. They can alter course with respect to heading up and with respect to heading down. The version that's been changed has to do with 16.1. And I'm just sort of showing how the rule was changed. This is from the website. So the red without a cross out is the new version. The red with a cross out is the old version. It's a little bit tedious to kind of read this thing very closely, but what they're saying here is that the starboard tack boat cannot bear down on a port tack boat if, as a consequence, the port tack boat has to immediately change direction. That's a simple version of it. The exact language is what you should, kind of refer to a little bit more specifically. When we're fleet racing, we don't actually do a whole lot of this, not on purpose anyway. This is more of a team racing rule. And the old rule said, that you couldn't do this if the blue boat was passing astern of the yellow boat. So what was happening was these clever racers would take the yellow boat and force the blue boat to actually do a dial down. They'll go completely downwind. And if you think about it for a second, that as a consequence, the blue boat is no longer able to pass astern of the yellow boat. Therefore, it wasn't a penalty. And yellow can hunt blue. That's the phrase that's often used, hunting, as a consequence. And it's very dangerous, especially in fleet racing. So the new rule says, don't do it. No hunting. You can look at it in dial down or dial up. And as far as significance goes, that's kind of one of the more significant changes. And as just alluded to, for fleet racing, we weren't doing that kind of stuff anyway. Okay, that was kind of an introduction. So we're going to look now at trivia questions as a mechanism for diving deeper into the rules as they existed, and maybe there are some changes that get thrown in here as well. 20 questions. Each question is presented one at a time. You have about a minute to sort of digest the question. Reference materials are discouraged, but it's not at the level of being illegal. So, deal with that. All answers will be revealed at the end. So we will go through all 20 questions in order. I will be happy to try to clarify, but the purpose of the questions is to keep them succinct and to have you also think about the situation in the context of rules, and sort of provide missing information in the context of rules. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously we're throwing you into questions about the rules without going over the rules, but it's a way of learning where you'll kind of understand where some weaknesses might be in terms of comprehending what's intended by a rule. And when we go over it, hopefully it'll be revealed that it makes sense. All of a sudden it might make sense, or it might have made sense from the beginning. So each one is a team. If you have someone playing with you, perfectly fine. Keep your own score, 1 to 20. The answers are typically, yes, no, true, false, blue, yellow. There might be at most one sentence, okay? Highest point wins. If there's a tie, we've got some bonus questions. Okay, so we're going to do that. I'm going to kind of read with you the question. I have a timer on my phone here. We don't want this to go forever, so I'm going to limit it, to between 30 and 60 seconds, depending on the question. You'll see some of these probably don't need 60 seconds. And then we'll go back and look at the details. Okay, question 1. How many minutes to start when this flag goes up? Go think. I've got a timer on 30 seconds on this one. The arrows at the bottom designate sound signals. A short dot is a short, loud signal, and a long dash is a long, loud signal, usually a horn. Up, flag goes up, flag comes down. Okay, how many minutes? Write down your answer. Question 1. Question 2. Are the gray boat and the orange boat overlapped? Purple is there, you can ignore purple. Focus on gray and orange. 1 and 8 in case there's some color problems. 30 seconds again.
Henrik, you being a professor, I definitely feel like I'm in class.
Oh yeah?
Pop quiz. Your mannerisms are, inflection, I should say.
Okay. So when we come back to this, we'll deal with a lot more detail. But I'm kind of letting you interpret what a dashed line is, what tack these boats are on, and etc. Whether they're upwind or downwind, etc. You can figure that out. Okay, question 3. Here we are. So if it is 15 seconds before the start, 15 seconds before the start, the boats are in position 1. So if it is 15 seconds before the start, when the boats are in position 1, so that's at the bottom of the screen and to the right of the screen, is yellow entitled to room? Obviously, the boats are moving from position 1 to 2 to 3. It's kind of a yes, no, but we will discuss it. 30 seconds, 15. Orange is obviously committee boat. The starting line is the black thin line. Okay, good. Question 4. The start signal is made at position 3. Position 3 is the end position for all the boats here. If the start signal is made at position 3, has blue started? Has blue started? So it's easy to score when we just deal with yes, no kind of stuff. We shouldn't have something like it depends.
Can I put yo? When I
Yo,
don't know, it's half yes, half no. Yo.
yeah, you know, that's kind of a maybe, right?
Yeah.
There is a maybe scenario, but it would be far-fetched. Okay, Q5. Q5. Is the green boat allowed to sail between the luffing boats? And again, race committee and the starting line are all being shown there, may or may not be important. So these questions so far are kind of associated with the start. The start is important because that's when we have a lot of boats converging together. So it's important to know, you know, what's expected, what do the rules say about engaging with other boats at the start and so on. So we do have a couple of questions here focused on the start. Okay, we're going to Q6. Q6, so a couple of more boats now participating in this scenario. So yellow is steering a course to avoid crossing the line early. So you see yellow position 1 is bearing down to position 2. Blue bears away and hails protest. Yellow does the required penalty in a proper manner. Has yellow properly complied with the protest? So they've done their penalty, but have they complied with the protest? The scenario is showing, you know, yellow approaching the line to start in the vicinity of a bunch of other boats, you know, bearing down and then ultimately starting. So take a second to read that one, figure out what's going on, and has yellow complied with the protest? In other words, are they good to go in terms of finishing the race? Just a few more seconds on this one. Okay. Sorry about the background.
Someone's phoning you for an answer.
Yeah.
Phone a friend.
It's probably going to be someone, you know, someone selling me something.
Yeah.
All right,
warranty
so I
expired on your car.
Okay. So we're on to Q7. So yellow and blue are approaching the port end of a starting line. This one's a little bit longer, you know, so, but we get the idea. Obviously, yellow is on a starboard tack, blue's on a port tack. Yellow and blue are approaching the port end of the starting line. Start signal is made between positions 2 and 3. So between, in other words, they started without starting early. Immediately after the starting signal, blue runs over the mark. The mark at that point is in red. So when blue runs over the mark is in red. The mark jumps out from the hull and bounces against yellow's starboard side. At that point, the mark is in the position of gray. Both boats continue. None of the boats protest each other. They finish. How should race committee score both blue and yellow? So 2 sections. How did they score blue? How did they score yellow? Is there a problem in the first place? But you sort of understand what the scenario is. It's a starting scenario. Nobody's run over a mark in our races, so this may not be appropriate. RC Race Committee. Okay. Blue, yellow. 8. This is a 30-second one. What does this flag signal? And what does both the flag signal and the sound indicate to boats racing? So a flag is displayed, a sound, black dot, single sound. What does it indicate if you're a boat racing? Just a short phrase. Okay, so that's a good lookup one. All right, Q9. Is green entitled to mark room from blue? So we're going up the course now. We're getting to a mark. Is green entitled to mark room from blue? We've got blue, yellow, green. There's a dashed line around the red. Red is the mark. The dashed line is the zone, indicating the zone. The arrow indicates the port rounding. The wind is from the top of the page. So it can be yes, no at this point, and we'll walk through it later. Okay, halfway through. Assuming the boats are required to leave the mark to port. The picture's, not in color here, a little bit different. Assuming the boats are required to leave the mark to port, can the windward boat, boat B, continue sailing and cause A to leave the zone in this situation? Okay, so B and A are approaching the mark. They have to leave it to port. B never rounds the mark, at least up till B3. Is there a problem here? Can the windward boat continue sailing and cause A to leave the zone in this situation? Kind of a yes, no. Okay, Q11 coming up. Here's a scenario that's sort of typical, perhaps, of trying to sail in the slow current. It's written in terms of port P, boat P is always on port. The wind is from the top left corner. So we have P and S sailing upriver with Ellis Island excluded in the gray zone. So there's no, you're not allowed to enter in the gray zone. The wind is from the upper left. At position 4, P hails for room, citing rule 19 and 20. Is P4 entitled to room? Okay. Is P4 entitled to room? Rules 19 and 20. 19 and 20 have to do with obstruction. Gray is an obstruction. It's a continuing obstruction. All right, we're going to go to Q12. Q12. Does the 3-boat zone rule? It's not really a rule. It's an indication. Does the 3-boat zone apply when the first boat blue enters or when both boats enter? Does the 3-boat zone apply when the first boat blue enters or when both boats enter? The zone is indicated by the dotted line around red, the mark they're going around. The zone is associated with the mark. Yeah, okay.
I look at these diagrams, I just hear a lot of screaming and yelling.
Blue is in good shape. It looks crowded, but you have to look at the numbers.
I know, but everybody yells at each other anyway.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
no.
Q13, here we go. Two situations. In which situation allows the port tack boat to tack to leeward of a fetching starboard tack boat? So a lot of words there, but there are only two boats, two scenarios. Which situation allows the port tack boat to tack to leeward of a fetching starboard tack boat? A, B, neither, or both. A, B, or neither, or both. Those are kind of the options. And again, the zone is indicated by the dotted line, the mark, the red circle. This is where you get a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
Okay, 14. So here we have a situation where boats are sailing and we don't have a mark shown on this diagram. So they're sailing in the absence of a marker. So blue overlapped yellow from clear astern and then luffed above her proper course. Did blue break a rule? Okay, getting on the home stretch. 15. So this picture, you know, you might have to put your face a little closer to the screen, but I'll try to put the scenario together for you. There's a leeward boat. So let me read it first. So assume the leeward boat overlapped the other boat, windward, from clear astern. Which boat must keep clear? So there's a red spinnaker. That's the easiest highlight to sort of focus on. The red spinnaker belongs to the windward boat. It's the boat behind is flying the red spinnaker. The boat ahead has its jib up, but it also has a spinnaker up. It's just out of the picture. You can see the clue up in the right-hand corner. But the windward boat is the one, sorry, the leeward boat is the one closest to you in terms of what the sails are doing, and the windward boat is the one farthest away flying a red chute. Assume the leeward boat overlapped the other boat, windward red, from clear astern. Which boat must keep clear? So you can refer to it as the leeward boat, the windward boat, neither. Okay. Let's go to 16. 16 is the same scenario, so we don't have to describe it again, but it's exactly the same picture. So leeward is the boat in the foreground. The spinnaker collapses as a result of the wind shadow from the other windward red chute boat. So, you know, leeward is trying to pass. They go sail underneath red. Their spinnaker collapses, to be expected. Can then the leeward boat luff red in order to regain the ability to keep the spinnaker flying? So I hope that makes sense.
Henrik, are we assuming that the leeward boat came from clear astern?
Yeah, the same. Yeah, it's the same as the previous question. Yes, it came from clear astern. Yeah, thanks. Okay. All right, next question. So blue, in this scenario, we have one other boat shown. Blue is making a tactical wide and tight rounding of the leeward mark. Is she allowed to do this with yellow to leeward, but not in the zone at position 1? So that's just describing the scenario, but it's also shown in the picture. Again, the zone dotted line, blue, wide, tight. Is this allowed? Yes, no. We're almost there. Okay, next one. Here's a flag question. What does this flag indicate when displayed on the course during racing? What sound signals accompany the flag? So kind of has two parts, but we'll count it as one answer. Maybe we'll give you half a point if you get half of it. Or we'll give you extra credit if you get both. What is this flag telling you? And what should you expect to hear? Okay, Q19. Q19, we're at the finish now. So boat A was finishing in the dark after sunset and left a finishing mark to starboard. So there is a committee boat, there's a finishing mark, there's a finishing line shown. She subsequently returned to the course side of the course and finished as shown. Should she be scored D and F? Should she be scored D and F? We'll keep it yes, no for now. And we have our very last question. Again, a finish appropriately. Did the yellow boat finish? Simple question. Obviously, we have committee, we have the finish line indicated. You can assume they're approaching the finish from the correct direction. Did yellow finish? Yes, no. All right, so we got through that.
Henrik, do you think that you could go back to question 10 for just a second? Show it.
We're going to go back to 1.
Okay, all right.
And we'll do them in order.
I just meant for like a quick second so I could see it one more time.
Okay, let me give it to you.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else need to re-see a question? Otherwise, you can wait till we go through the answers.
Okay, so hopefully the answers weren't too long. You didn't have to write a whole lot. So, so Dave, I don't know, you want to handle any of this stuff? I don't mind handling it, but
that would require me to know the answer.
oh well, yeah. All right, let me go through it. So the answer is 4.
I don't want to put, yeah, that one I knew.
Let's just give an answer.
Yeah.
So 4 is the answer. And some additional information. Obviously, this is the P flag. It's the preparatory signal. It's displayed at 4 minutes before the start with 1 sound signal. Additional information, which is not part of the question, it comes down at 1 minute with a long sound signal. You know, the purpose of this preparatory signal is to indicate that the boats are racing. So when the P flag, this flag is flying, you're officially racing and the rules of engagement apply. so you need to be aware of that. It also tells you to a certain extent where you are in the sequence. So you should be able to look at committee, look at the situation of the flags, and have a good idea of whether you're within less than a minute or more than a minute of the start, so you can kind of reorient yourself. Okay, so 4, the answer is 4. Give yourself a point if you got 4. All right. Chute 2, are the gray boat and the orange boat overlapped? Quick answer is yes, boats are overlapped. So this comes from the definition, and it's just sort of the purpose of this question is to just kind of get you thinking that you need to know definitions in addition to the rules. Boats are overlapped when they are on the same tack, unless they are both sailing 90 degrees from the wind. So the term overlap refers to boats on the same tack unless they are both sailing 90 degrees from the wind. In this case, they are on the same tack. If you just look a little closely, they're both on a port tack. Therefore, we can consider if they're overlapped. And the overlap has to do with the position of the boats relative to the stern. So they're both within the overlapping portion of the stern of the boat. That's the dashed line off of boat 1. Okay, so more about a definition. I can't imagine personally a situation where this would factor into anything except avoiding a collision, but it's kind of one of those questions. Do you know the definition of overlap?
If anybody has any
Henrik,
questions, yeah, just.
Yeah, I do. I thought it was the gray and the orange, not the purple.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say purple? Yeah, that's just a mistake. So gray, orange, or overlap? Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about previous question number 1? Yeah, this one. So you said at 4 minutes, it indicates that boat started, not started, but racing. So at this point, the proper course rule, it still does not apply, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing to be said about proper course
Okay.
at this point. No.
Okay, understood.
Okay. So here, 15 seconds. So is yellow entitled to room? No. The answer is no. The reason they're not entitled to room is because blue is a leeward boat and yellow is a windward boat. And that has to do with Rule 11. Also, blue has to comply with Rule 16.1 actually, which has to do with blue making changes to its course in such a way that yellow does not have to change course immediately. So blue is changing course slowly. They're leeward. Yellow is windward. Yellow has to keep clear. They are not getting any protection because of Rule 18. Rule 18 has to do with giving room at a mark. Committee boat is a mark, but Rule 18 does not apply at the starting mark or its anchor. Okay, so that's how the rule comes into this.
The question, Henrik,
yeah.
why is it written no room on the 3rd spot for the blue boat?
Oh, that's some guy on blue yelling to yellow and green.
Okay, okay.
That's probably Lionel.
I thought that was
That's
a trick.
Lionel, yeah.
That's Lionel just yelling.
That's an edited version of what was actually said.
Okay.
Yeah, normally no F in room.
Okay, everyone happy with that? Good. So start signal is made at position 3. Has blue started? So the scenario is very similar. It's actually the same, but the question is different. It has to do again with the definition. You only start when your hull. So we're kind of focused on the new change with references just the hull. The hull crosses the starting line from the pre-start side to the course for the first time. after the starting signal. So after the starting signal, the hull crosses the starting line from the pre-start side. Then you have started. Blue has started. So
So
blue has
the answer is no in this.
no. Yeah, no. Blue has not yet started. So different things happen after the start. The most important one would be if you had to take, well, actually, let's just, actually, I was thinking of match racing. There's nothing terribly significant about that distinction there. It's just to know that you started properly. Okay. No. Q5, is the green boat allowed to sail between the luffing boats? The answer is kind of maybe. You know, this is not phrased very well. I'm going to give an official answer as no.
What?
Yeah, sorry.
Come on, we do that all the time.
I'm going to say no because the room indicated by the diagram is absolutely minimum. So it's not so much, you know, that it's a tight fit in that sense. It has to do with Rule 16 again, in terms of altering course. Once green gets in between blue and yellow, they are not in a position, neither is yellow and blue perhaps. They are not in a position to alter course without immediately making contact. So that's the reason. So you're not giving a boat room to keep clear. And in particular, I would say that green is not giving yellow. Sorry, wait a second, let me think. Yeah, green is not giving yellow room to keep clear if green sails right in there, right next to yellow. Any move by yellow is very likely to cause contact.
So in other words, if it's practically head to wind, the only way it can get out of the way is essentially tack, and its stern may swing over and hit green.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe that situation.
Yes.
Whereas blue can just bear away, but
Blue
even
is
bearing
right
away, their stern could also hit green.
Yes. Right.
So that's what you're thinking.
Yes.
Okay.
Dave, can I interject too?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say though that their sails are luffing. If the wind's coming from the top, they need to trim their sails in to accelerate, and they're not going to really swing their stern either way. And you know, yeah, is it tight? Yes. Would you do it? Probably not. But is it legal? I would say probably, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those. It's one of those that you can argue either way.
I'm gonna steer clear of Lou.
Yeah, right. I would also think of it like this. I mean, if you showed this picture to a protest committee, you would probably lose. That's just my experience.
I would agree.
So, you know, you can kind of imagine that. But okay, so let's just think again. No, the answer is no. Okay. So this is an interesting one, I think. Yellow is obviously bearing down so they don't cross the line early, you know. That's kind of what's going on here. The starting signal is made and they go ahead and bear up. They're obviously the first boat to cross the line. Blue is protesting yellow for not keeping clear. Blue is obviously the leeward boat. Yellow is windward. Yellow is not keeping clear. Blue protests. So what's happened is that yellow then immediately takes the penalty. So that's what it is, proper manner. They start, and actually start is not important. They take their penalty, 2-turn penalty, 2 tacks, 2 jibes, and they continue sailing. The question then will be, let's imagine this goes to the protest room. Yellow says, okay, I took my penalty. Blue is there saying, I'm the one that made the protest. This is the reason. Has yellow properly complied with the protest? The answer is no, no. Does anyone know why? Okay, good.
Don't know.
Because that penalty, what they took is if the committee boat says that you're over early or something. And when another boat protests you, I think you have to go to the protest committee.
Yeah, yeah, let's assume they started, let's assume they weren't on the course side. They started appropriately. The reason it's no, just to sort of get it, the reason it's no is because you can't exonerate yourself by taking a penalty when you have gained a significant advantage. In other words, yellow did this purposeful. They did this on purpose because they didn't want to cross the line. And what, as a consequence, they started first. They are first to cross the line. Everyone else is in their shadow. They are off to the races. Now they have to do a penalty, yes, but the rules and the interpretation of the rules in the casebook will dictate that yellow gained a significant advantage by breaking a rule. They can then not get out of it by taking a penalty, turns out. So no, yellow. It's not so much
Would yellow be able to go and restart?
No, they're out of, they're done.
So they're disqualified?
Well, they have to be disqualified by the protest committee. So they're not disqualified by anyone else. But if this goes, when this goes to the protest committee, yellow will say, oh, I did my turns. You might think that that's the end of it, but no, the protest committee would say, if they were given this picture, they would say, yellow's disqualified.
But funny thing, in America's Cup, I noticed that when the boat had an advantage, they actually made it just get behind the other boats and then let the race continue, but that was match racing.
Yeah, well, that's because it would be a tremendous penalty for them to take a turn like that. Plus, it turns out, just since you mentioned it, you know, the America's Cup does not operate under the racing rules of sailing. They have their own independent sanctioned rules. So.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so think about that. You cannot purposely break a rule and expect to exonerate yourself by taking a penalty. Even if you end up in the back of the pack, you might be in trouble. Okay, so here's one where blue hits the mark. You know, the mark is pulled from where it used to be. So let's assume even that yellow would have started correctly if blue hadn't pulled the mark away, but blue somehow gets by and the mark pops out and hits yellow on the starboard side. That's the scenario. They continue, there are no protests. The question is, what is race committee, assuming they saw all this and digested all the information here, how should race committee now score blue and yellow? And the answer is, yellow should be scored NSC, not sailing the course. That's a new rule. Blue hit the mark. Race committee should simply score blue in their finishing position.
Yay.
Now, the race committee can protest blue, but they're not often inclined to do that if nobody else is protesting blue. So this is kind of another part of this particular question here that's important. You know, the rules are enforced by the competitors. Yellow obviously could have protested blue. They chose not to. The race committee is kind of in a position where they're saying, well, none of the competitors wanted to protest blue. You know, we don't have to protest blue. We'll score them in that they have to score them in their finishing position. If they wanted to change that, they would have to then protest them and go through a protest hearing. So yellow, not sailing the course because they didn't start properly, and blue finish.
So Henrik, the way I interpret it was yellow was DNS because it even if the mark didn't pop out and hit them, it didn't look like they were going to make the mark anyway.
Yeah,
they were going to go out. You could see in positions 3 and 4 in relation to the red, they were never going to cross the line. So that aside, what does NCS mean? That is it the same as a did not start? Like
okay, yeah. So did not start, you know, is kind of a non-participating boat in that race. They could be scored OC No, yeah, I mean, they could be scored, did not start, I think. I'm not familiar enough with the new rule, but they could be done that way, but more appropriately, they didn't sail the course.
So then they just get the number of boats plus one, basically, is how they would get scored, if that's what the sailing instructions said?
No, that's how they would be scored, yes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if that's a
So in
surprise.
this case, yellow should have protested blue and restarted
Yellow should have done a turn.
for hitting the mark.
For hitting the mark. They should have restarted, come completely to the pre-start side of the line and restarted, yes.
And protest blue.
It's up to them if they want to protest blue. Yes, they don't have to, right? Okay.
But that would have given them,
If it's Mark's boat, we're protesting.
but if they had protested, that would have given them the competitive advantage over blue for this situation.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. They might have actually been able, well, yeah, I don't want to get too crazy with this question, but they could have kind of said, that the reason they hit the mark was because of blue's action. So they might not have had to do a turn for hitting the mark, but they would certainly have had to have restarted to finish properly. But they're going to have to turn around anyway. So they would have done a turn.
And blue just continues without taking a penalty? So can
If no one's protesting.
That's their choice. Yeah. Okay.
It seems like, can I just real quick, it seems
Yeah.
like at the start line like that, though, the race committee should protest.
Yeah.
Like it's right in your face, assuming
I
it's a
would-
short start line.
I would think so. The only reason that I kind of left it a little up in the air is that all the other competitors are on the start line as well. And if nobody protested them, that's saying something to the race committee.
what, just sorry that I'm going over this then, but so at the line, the boats, if they're all off to the starboard, off to the right, and they can't see what's going on right there, and they don't see that blue touches it because it's on the port side of them. So how, if yellow doesn't do anything, how do and yellow is disqualified, not for starting, and then blue gets a tactical advantage and gets in front. Unless race committee does say something, how are the other boats supposed to do anything?
Okay, yeah. So in that condition, race committee should probably do something.
Okay. All right.
So that's a kind of a what if, but yeah, there are different ways this can go. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
We're in trouble if Kelly and I are on the race committee boat together.
Well, exactly. I
I mean, mean race committee.
You could be hardcore.
I want to
Yeah.
understand the responsibility.
Sure.
Listen,
Okay.
Beth, I'm watching you.
All right, here's a flag. What does this flag signal and sound indicate to boats racing? So this is an X flag. Maybe it doesn't look like an X. That's an X flag with one sound signal. This flag you will see at a start from the race committee boat when one or more boats are over the line early. Typically followed by an announcement, but not mandatory. In other words, they could simply hoist X with a sound signal. It's the responsibility of a boat to know whether it's over early, but every race committee that I've worked with and raced with, will try to get on the PHRF and announce which boats are indicated by this flag. So it's an over early indication to boats that are over early. X flag. Somehow, however you phrase that, give yourself the correct point, 1 point.
Individual recall.
Individual recall, very good way of, that's the official version, yes. Although it can be referring to more than one boat. In other words, each boat is the individual recall. Okay.
Can I ask a question? If a boat goes over early,
Yep.
can it continue to race, or is there a kind of an understanding you should then bow out of the race and let the others
Yeah,
go?
they will not have started correctly. So they will be OCS in that case. That's another on the course side at the start. That's another way of race committee scoring. So they're allowed to score a boat, OCS, and they would be disqualified.
But the boat can circle back around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Chuck, like they can just circle back around the mark and restart.
Yeah, and thank you. So while you mentioned that, as they are circling back around and restarting, they lose protection from the rules of Part 2 with respect to the other boats. You know, only when they're returning to the line. If they're still going upwind, they have all of the rights of the rules, even if they started early. But when they turn around and are coming back to the line to start, they have no protection from the rules of Part 2. Keep that in mind. Okay. Q9, is green entitled to mark room from blue? Yes, simple answer. So this is a so-called Rule 18 scenario, has to do with boats approaching a mark. In this case, green and blue, you know, just on their own. So forget yellow for a second. Green and blue are not overlapped. In the sense, in a scenario where yellow doesn't exist. But the definition of overlap actually will extend to green. This is a racing rule definition. When there is an intervening boat for which they are both overlapped. So as far as blue is concerned, yes, green is overlapped. When you're overlapped at the zone, you're entitled to mark room. Room to sail to and round the mark. Room to sail to and round the mark. Mark room, it's a definition. So green is entitled to continue sailing. They should be able to comfortably sail around that mark without being squeezed out by neither yellow nor blue.
So yellow and blue cannot fall off essentially and squeeze,
Right.
like you said, squeeze them out.
They can't, yeah. And you know, the question is a little subtle only in the sense that the overlap, the definition of overlap extends from blue to green when yellow is in between. Q10, we're at the windward mark. Assume boats are required to leave the mark to port. Can B sail past the mark and, you know, A is just kind of getting farther and farther away. Is there a problem here? The answer is no problem. So yes, let me figure out what, assuming, can the windward boat continue sailing? Yes. So B can continue sailing. They don't have to turn to round the mark. This is kind of not a fleet racing tactic. It's more of a team racing, match racing tactic. But you know, if A finds itself in this situation, they just need to luff without tacking, without passing head to wind. They need to be luffing B. A needs to be luffing B so that they can basically force the situation. Otherwise, A cannot simply tack because looking at the picture, while you're tacking, you need to keep clear of other boats that are not tacking. So A could not fall in front of B and expect any protection from the rule. In fact, it's explicit that they cannot do that.
But you're saying that A could luff B all the way up into irons.
Yeah, they're a leeward boat. They have right of way. Actually, they're clear ahead. But once they start luffing, they will be leeward. You can imagine they would be leeward. That's what I would be imagining. And they would then have rights as a leeward boat all the way up to head to wind.
Totally. Okay, good.
Henrik, could boat A jibe and go behind boat B?
Yeah, sure. And B may be, for whatever reason, may be hoping they do something like that because that'll take a much longer time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for boats that aren't as close to don't sail as close to the wind as other boats and can't, since it's perf. That's all.
Yeah. You know, so this happens at the windward mark, and I'm not sure if we have another question, but at the leeward mark, the answer, even though they're not obviously close hauled at the leeward mark, sorry, at the leeward mark? The answer would be no. You cannot sail. If you have to jibe at the leeward mark, you have to jibe. You cannot sail past. But at the windward mark, you can sail past.
So Henrik, there isn't any assumption of proper course on this?
No, they're not even overlapped. Yeah.
So why is it different at the other mark?
It's just a quick statement from me, that just in case there was a situation where they needed to be rounding the mark and it's a jibe, it would be a jibe. The rules are written so that you must jibe when it's appropriate to round the mark. You can't sail past a mark. I don't have it in front of me and I don't have a question about it, but it's a different scenario at the downwind mark.
So what's the actual answer to this one? Because I hear
Yes,
it both ways.
yes.
Yes. Oh.
So Henrik, on to that point, let's say a boat's approaching a leeward mark, has trouble getting the spinnaker down, continues to sail past the mark in order to douse the spinnaker and then turn upwind.
Yeah.
Is that boat now disqualified because they sailed past the mark?
It depends. There's a lot of other things. So if they're forcing another boat to, be prevented from rounding the mark, it could very well be, yes, they could be in a penalty situation. They could be protested. Yes. Competence, the short answer is competence is not protection. Incompetence is not protection.
Got it. Thank you. No, that's helpful.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is a scenario where we have a continuing obstruction. You'll find this in rules 19 and 20. You have port tack. The picture is not so clear what tack they're on, but they're both starting on port tack. The wind is from the top left. P is along the boundary and S is, sailing away. And because they're showing, like we're showing here 1, 2, 3, 4. So the idea is that S is sailing pretty far away so that when it tacks back, it's not immediately in front of the port tack boat, the P boat. There's some opportunity for P to do something at position S3, P3 and S3. That's kind of the idea of them spreading out like that. So the question is, P hails for room at 4, claiming 19 and 20. Is P entitled to room? The answer is no. So you're going to say, well, what can P possibly do? Yellow is just sailing right at him. So yellow is sailing close hauled. That would be appropriate, given the scenario here. The wind wasn't shown, but it's kind of, they're close hauled with a tack like that. There's no protection from rule 19 unless you're on the same tack. So they're on different tacks. There is just absolutely no protection. So S would protest, P would ultimately be found liable, would be disqualified. S should not force the situation. They should not cause any damage to P, either as a consequence of forcing P into shallow water or obviously not hitting P. So they have to get out of the way at some point. S does, but that does not invalidate a protest. So
the answer is no, right?
Yeah, is P4 entitled to room? No. So P should have acted at position 3, and they should have been even back at position 2 and 1. They should have seen this is what it means to, have confidence in sailing the course, knowing the rules. They should have known something was going to happen here. They have to think pretty quick. Okay, 12. Does the 3-boat zone apply? It's not a rule, get rid of rule. Does the 3-boat zone apply when the first boat enters or when both boats enter? So it applies when the first boat enters. Simple question, really. So the other part of this question, which I was also going to discuss, is suppose you have the boats of different sizes. You know, we've got a small boat and a big boat. We see that on our race course. You know, what's the definition of the 3-boat zone? Does anybody know? Okay, so it has to do with when the first boat enters the zone. So,
Right. The length of that first boat,
yeah, the length of the first boat entering the zone.
3 times the length of the first boat.
Yeah.
Right. So Henrik, I want to maybe move along a little
Oh, sorry. Okay.
faster. That's all right. We can just answer, and if people have questions specifically, we can address them at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, this is a question, which situation? So this has to do again with rule 18. A boat that tacks in the zone has to make sure that the starboard tack boat that's fetching the mark does not sail above close hauled. Okay. So in both of these cases, the boat that tacked causes the starboard tack boat to sail above close hauled. Clearly, it's tacked in the zone in position A, and in position B, you know, I got this off of some other site. I'm not sure exactly what they're intending here, but I would say they have not tacked outside of the zone. So they've tacked in the zone in position B as well. So in both cases, it's not allowed. I mean, they can tack, but they're going to be penalized. They're going to have a protest here as far as tacking in the zone. If you tack outside the zone, then you are simply a leeward boat and you have rights as a leeward boat. If you tack inside the zone, you don't have rights as a leeward boat with respect to forcing the other boat above close hauled. Okay.
So the answer is, again?
You can get, so the answer is neither.
Neither. Okay.
So this is a boat overlapping from Clear Astern and luffing. Did blue break a rule? Yes, this is a straightforward reading, verbatim almost, of rule 17. Assuming that the blue boat is sailing a proper course when they are overlapping, and then they are luffing above their proper course, that breaks rule 17. Okay, because the overlap was established from Clear Astern. Yes, the answer is yes. So this is one where the leeward boat is overlapping again. Which boat must keep clear? So we're kind of looking at it a little different. So it turns out the windward boat has to keep clear. Windward boat always has to keep clear when there's a leeward windward situation. So that's the answer. It was, you know, not intended to be a trick, but the windward boat has obligations to keep clear. The leeward boat has an obligation to not sail above their proper course, which, you know, may be the situation since they look to be both J105s. They would both be sailing very similar proper courses. So which boat must keep clear? Windward. In a sense, well, no, in fact, windward is the answer. This is a situation where the leeward boat is passing. You know, if you do this, you might, when you do this, you might anticipate that you're going to have your spinnaker collapse because you'll be shadowed by the other boat. When the spinnaker collapses, your proper course is to head up and fill the spinnaker. I think we would agree on that. So then the question is, can the leeward boat luff the windward boat, the one with the red chute, to regain the ability to keep the spinnaker flying? But the answer is no. So why is the answer no? The answer is no, because the rule is interpreted in the absence of the other boat. That's a key point. In other words, what is your proper course in the absence of the other boat? Well, you were just sailing it, so you can't go above it. And again, incompetence or losing your spinnaker is a consequence, but in the absence of the other boat, you would not have lost your spinnaker. So that's an interpretation, a little subtle, but you cannot head up, you know, to regain your collapsed spinnaker. And we kind of know that when we're racing because we often see ourselves in this kind of a situation. Okay, no. 17, blue is making a tactical wide rounding. Is she allowed to do this? So blue, first of all, is windward. They're in the zone. Yellow is not, but Rule 18 applies when the first boat enters the zone. They are overlapped. Blue is an inside overlapped boat. It has to keep clear of yellow. It's only entitled to mark room. Mark room is specified as room to sail to the mark and round the mark. And it's very specifically written that way so that you do not have the option to take a wide path around the mark. So the answer is no. Is she allowed to do a wide turn tight? The answer is no, because of the definition of mark room, sail to the mark and round the mark. What flag is this? This is a Charlie flag, a C flag, a change of course flag. The course has been changed. The next mark is located someplace else. What sound signals accompany the flag? A series of short sounds. Usually 5 is a good number. So a series of short sounds, and the flag is displayed to boats individually. So you can expect that who's ever showing you this flag is showing it to you purposely and then going to show it to other people purposely. So you'll see the flag and hear the sound many times if this comes up. Change of course, multiple sounds. So boat A is finishing in the dark. That's the reason they missed the mark, but they came back on the finishing side of the course in order to cross the finishing line, from the direction of the previous mark. Can race committee score this boat DNF? The answer is, the answer is no. DNF is not allowed. It wasn't allowed in the old rules. This is an old question because they would have had to have protested her. But in the new rules, so the answer is no. But in the new rules, race committee hopefully wouldn't have thought of that. They would have scored her NCS in the new rule. So no. Should she be scored DNF? No. Did the yellow boat finish? Yes. Answer is yes. You only need your hull to cross the finish line from the course side of the course. Yellow has to be careful that they don't hit a mark in terms of bearing away. They have to clear the mark in order to finish racing. So yellow has finished, but they have not completed racing. They can still get a penalty if they hit the mark. If they hit the mark, they would have to do a turn and finish again. Just as a second piece of information, but the answer is yes. Okay, so we have any perfect scores?
So let's work with on the optimistic side. So how many people, if you folks want to get back on the video, show of hands, how many people got one right? At least one right. At least one. Okay. All right, we're going to jump. How many got at least 5 right? Okay. How many got at least 10 right? All right. How many got at least 15? 15, no takers, no 15s. Okay. Now let's drop back. 14. Anybody got 14? 13? 12? 11? I got 11. Steve, you got 11?
Kimberly got 12. She raised her hand.
Oh, Kim got 12?
Yep.
You don't know? You're on mute, Kim.
She got 12.
Yeah, I got 12.
You got 12. All right.
Yeah,
Did
I'm just
anybody else get
surprised
12?
that was. mean, yes or no?
Congrats, Kim.
All right, congrats.
Good job.
You are the 2021 Racing Rules Champion. Now we have two people
And
on our
I'm
boat.
very, very lucky that Henrik is on the boat that I sail on. So.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to tell everybody too, is that our crew doesn't need to know the rules. We just have Henrik on board. Ask him what we do in these situations. Okay, so I hope everybody had fun, learned a thing or two. It's good to think about this stuff while not on the water, just to get the gears going in our heads and thinking about this stuff. And I think one of the points, Henrik, you made too, was that sometimes it's not about what you can think you can do on the course, but how the protest committee may interpret what was done too. So like in our discussion about coming up between boats. So anyway, does anybody have any final questions or thoughts or anything like that, or anything? Well, if you have any suggestions for future ones, this is starting to be an annual trend, just, a couple weeks before racing season starts, that we host this trivia night. So hopefully if we don't see you on the water, we'll see you in the future. So on that note.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Henrik, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Henrik,
Terrific
thank you.
night.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Henrik.
Yeah, you're
Henrik, do
welcome.
you
My
have
pleasure.
a couple minutes to go over one or two
Thanks,
questions?
everyone.
Kim, just email them to Henrik.
Okay.
All right.
Kim, I'll hang on for a second, just 1 second, and that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I gotta hang on.
Good night.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it'll be super quick. Number 19, one question.
Do I have to bring it up?
This was the one about NCS. Like it was about the one where the night crossing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
not that the night part mattered on that, but the scenario was that when in order to actually then finish, let's say the boat didn't see the mark right away.
Yeah.
If that boat had jibed or turned away from the mark and then gone around the other way and not crossed the line, would that have been okay? Or is it just that they crossed the plane of the mark, the finish line?
Yeah, they have to unwind. They have to unwind them. The sailing the course is a definition.
Right.
Has to do, with the string rule. Yeah. So you got to unwind yourself so that the string is from the direction of the last mark across the line.
So they could have just gone around like that.
I kind of think
Well,
so, based on your
So you had the line,
Oh.
instead of dipping like this,
Yeah.
they could have just gone around like that.
Yeah, they would have to unwind. They would have to go from where they came and then
Right.
sail through the finish line. They can't
Sorry,
go in
are
a
you
big
s-
circle.
Are you saying they'd have to turn like 180 degrees, get
Do-
back above the finish line, and then go back through the finish line?
Around the mark. Yeah, let me bring up, if you don't mind, I hope I'm not getting confused. Let me try to bring it up.
Because if it's from mark to mark, then once they broke the plane of the windward mark to the pin,
Yeah,
I would think that they'd be not sailing the course.
so this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say at position 3 here, they need to, can you see my cursor?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can draw too, Henrik,
Yes.
annotate if you want.
They would have to come, they would have to go like this.
Mhm.
They would have to go backwards from where they came. They cannot simply, I don't know what else they could do. They can't go this way. I mean, you might think, well,
Okay.
how about if I do this?
So the fact that they crossed the plane of the finishing line isn't the bad part. The problem is that they didn't go back around the way they came and then cross the plane.
Yeah, the bad
Correct.
part is the string is not in the direction from the last mark. It's in the direction of the of the finish mark. You know, if we leave things as they are, the string is pulled from the course side of the finish mark. No good.
We've seen situations where we thought we crossed the line. There was no signal from race committee, no horn blast or anything. And then we realized, oh, wait a minute, maybe we did something wrong. So then we backtracked, went around, and then pulled the string correct and went across, and then they blew the horn. So the fact that we crossed that plane, that didn't like all of a sudden stop your race.
No.
You still can fix your mistake.
Yeah, and that's in the definition of finish. So you finish if your hull crosses the line in the direction of the last mark. So they actually finish here. The answer would be yes, but then there's a caveat. Unless the boat continues to sail the course. You know, so you finish unless you're still sailing and then you didn't finish. So still sailing means they're going to correct the error at the finishing mark. It's a funny definition, but that's the reason the definition is written that way.
Okay, and if you were in position 2 when you noticed that you didn't finish correctly, you could just tack and go around, right?
Yeah, backwards again, backwards from where you came. Yes. Tack.
Okay,
Yep. Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, thank you.
So a quick question about 17 about tactical rounding. I just missed the answer.
Oh, the answer. No, the answer was no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
All right, thanks, Henrik.
All
I'm
right.
so glad you're on the
Thanks,
boat.
Yeah.
Kelly,
Yeah.
Kim, Mark, maybe we'll see you Saturday for race committee.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
David, I would be there, but I actually have to go to a family funeral. Otherwise,
Oh,
I
I'm
would be
sorry.
there.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Henrik.